What's the scariest thing you've ever done? Story 1. I went to a Southern Baptist school growing up that was insanely strict and overbearing. You'd be suspended for basic PDA like holding hands or hugging. And to make matters worse, teachers had eyes in the backs of their heads. This made for some pretty rebellious times when a few of us devils would plan ahead to try to sneak in a makeout session in a few places we knew we could get away with it. Now, our church chapel doubles is the school theater. Unless we were having a mass or theater class, that chapel was locked down 24/7. We were having a dress rehearsal in theater class my senior year when I was backstage and realized that someone had left the key in the back door exit behind the stage. There were 2 keys in the keychain, and after trying both, I realized they were the same key for the same door. I quickly pocketed one off the keychain, and no one was the wiser. This was the kind of good fortune my frisky and hormonally repressed self dreamed about. I had the hots for this girl. We had managed to sneak away several times, make out, and get our hands under each other's shirts a few times. 2, but nothing more because we were always so scared of getting caught and expelled. Her parents were hardcore Baptists. Dad was a pastor and would never let her go anywhere on weekends, not even to sleep over at a friend's house. She would often slip me a folded note saying the dirty things she wanted to do. We spent months just needing a place to do it. And finally, this key was my golden ticket to some fun times. The opportune day arrived when she told me, "In the hallway before first period, my sister has junior high choir today, so my mom is coming an hour late to pick us up. You need to get out of the study hall last period and meet me behind the chapel." I made up an excuse to the dear old librarian in hall monitor that I needed to do work in the computer lab, since I was behind in a project. The kind Christen lady let me go easily, bless her. I casually walked across the campus and made sure not to be spotted heading behind the chapel. Sure enough, she was there waiting for me, and we snuck in and locked the door. We both lost our V-cards that day inside that holy place, and for 30 minutes we quietly had fun kissing, our frustrations goodbye. We felt like normal happy kids in each other's arms in that dimly lit church. I will never forget the most indecent thing I have ever heard in all 32 years of my life, she whispered in my ear. "God's watching us. I want you to play hard with me." We never did get caught, and if there was a God watching, I'm pretty sure he's the one that left the key in the door for me that day. Well, that was some wholesome fun. Story 2. My shining moment. Got a sloppy from 2 goth chicks in a graveyard. The 90s goth scene had a girl-to-guy ratio of about 5-1. If you as a guy were willing to put on platform boots, makeup, and tease up the hair, you would have to try very hard not to get laid regularly. There just wasn't any competition. I had the added advantage of being a singer and guitarist in a band. That was fairly well known in my area. One night, immediately after we finished our set, I was getting my gear picked up off the stage. I felt a hand running through my hair from behind me. I had waist-length black hair, and it was a feature for a lot of goth girls who liked me. I turned around, and a very pretty girl was standing there smiling at me. She said, "I love your band. I love your hair." I went home with her and proceeded to have fun with her for the next few weeks. She wasn't really my type for relationship purposes. She was really into magic and spells, and it was hard to keep a straight face when she was talking about them. But bedroom-wise, things worked pretty well. One night her dancer friend stayed at her house for whatever reason. We got a little buzzed in screwdrivers. Her friend actually had fire tattooed between her thighs. I will refer to her as Fire Thighs or FT from here. We were joking about her tattoos. They meant she had indeed. At one point she actually pulled her laundry down and showed me that she was very clean. The girl I was thought my dumbfounded reaction to her friend was hilarious. So we decided to sneak into a local cemetery. There was a popular spot for college students to drink and hang out. You get a view of the whole city from a hill. It was nice. We were drinking and sitting in front of a mom that we had dubbed the Vampire Castle because it was huge and kind of scary at night. My FUB was being really silly and kept putting Firethigh's hand down there. FD kept saying, "Stop it." But she was laughing too. Not to lie, it was pretty good. I think we planned to go home and continue the fun. But we had taken some pills at some point, and we were way too tired. That was disappointing because I really wanted to get some with FT. A couple of weeks later, I broke it off in my FWB so I could date the singer of another local goth band, so I never got to do the full-on three-way with FT Story 3. Last summer, I ran into my former neighbor at the beach. She's a very attractive 42-year-old woman, and I was 2 decades younger. She watched me grow up. I used to mow the lawn for her. I always admired her from a distance, but naturally I never thought something could happen. She moved away 4 years ago. After we bumped into each other, she sent me an Instagram DM. I guess that's the only place she could find me, saying that it was good to see me, followed by, and I, quote, I hope it's not creepy to say this, but you're looking really good these days. Game on. We messaged for about 3 days after the run-in at the beach. On the third night it went down. She couldn't wait, though. She took me straight into a kiss. She picked me up in her soccer mom mobile, and I enjoyed a refined sloppy. We drove to her house, and we had tons of fun. It was unreal. The rest is history. She knew what she was doing in every regard. The best part was that she had a bunch of adult gossip from the other neighbors on our old street with whom I'd never really interacted. I learned that John, the guy who's always fixing bicycles, was gay and religious. Dude is married with kids and does his wife from behind, and that's why she has short hair. It all clicked. You still talk and send the odd naughty picture, but we both agreed it probably wasn't the best to get to attach. Story 4. I worked at a Blockbuster in an upper-class neighborhood in the 90s when I was going to college. There was this very attractive older woman that would come in and ask for movie recommendations from time to time, and she'd always flirt with me a little. One day I was restocking the shelves, and she came up and asked if I lived nearby. She wanted to know if I wanted to make some dog-sitting money while she went on a business trip. I said sure, and I took her number. When I called her after my shift, she asked if I'd like to come over to meet the dog, see the house, and maybe hang out for a little bit. I said, of course. She asked if I had any problems. Hanging out because of her age difference, making it extremely obvious what she was hinting at. I said absolutely not, and rode my 10-speed over to her place. She introduced me to the dog, showed me where the dog food was, gave me a house key, etc. We were in the kitchen pouring drinks when she asked me if I thought she dressed too young. She was wearing a really tight-fitting halter top and was blessed. I said, well, you clearly have the body for it, so no. She said, you think? Well, I never had any kids, so these things are still really perky as big as they are. And did the halter top, revealing what I still consider a pair of the greatest chests I've ever seen, and I spent a year ving at a club. Seriously, they look like a slightly smaller version Tessa Fowler's, if you know who that is. She never went to that business trip, or even had one to begin with. For the next 3 months, the only time some part of my body was away from hers was when I was physically in class or asleep. She was insatiable 24/7, no matter what, every time. It only ended when she insisted on meeting my parents. She was older than them by a year, and she didn't understand that they wouldn't understand, and I broke it off. There was a lot of ages, just a number stuff, but we were in such different places. She had a career in a mortgage, and I rode a bike to a job where I had to wear a name tag in the shape of a movie ticket. That was literally 20 years ago this summer. I tried to look her up on social media once, but she would be 62 now. I turned 40 this year. I'm also in a happy monogamous relationship. I guess this dude had a real-life Stacy's mom experience. Story 5. 2 related stories here. I was a little younger at that point and had just been stationed at my first permanent duty base. Our friend and I had some girls over in his dorm to drink and watch movies. Me and a very sturdily built Puerto Rican girl, Evelise, were in his couch, while he and the other girl in his bed. They eventually passed out, so Ivy and I took the opportunity to start having loud fun in the couch, which didn't take long to wake the others up. Must not have been in a voyeurism because they got up, went, "What the hell?" and left. Ivy and I continued, and my friend started coming back with other people, parading them through his room to see what we were doing, and protesting loudly about his couch. At one point, while I'm sitting on the couch and Ivy is busy, another friend of mine walks in with a downtrodden look in his face. When he sees Ivy and me, he says, "Oh, sorry, I'll come back later," to which I respond, "No, what's the matter, bud?" He sits down on the arm of the couch and proceeds to tell me how his girlfriend just broke up with him and he's having a rough time. So, I have a real heart-to-heart talk about relationships and heartbreak, all while I'm still busy on the couch. After we talked, he said thanks for listening and left. I continued what we were doing. That's the end of the first story. The next story is related because Ivy and I continued up for some time after that night, and while she's involved, she's in the subject of the story. So one night a few weeks or months after the couch story, I'm laying in bed alone and watching Jurassic Park while I fall asleep. It's late at night and I'm starting to drift off when someone bangs at my door. I figured it was one of my friends who was probably hammered, so I opened the door and a girl I don't know, with her hair pulled down over her face, pushed it past me, into the room and shut all the lights off. I turned to her sort of stunned and asked, "Can I help you?" She turns to me and says, obviously trying to disguise her voice, "I heard you're good at going down south." That was pretty close to the bottom of the list of things I was expecting her to say, and all I could get out was, "Yeah, I guess." So, she goes into the explanation about how she has a hard time getting off. She's really frisky tonight. I, being young and stupid and thinking almost entirely with my raging hormones, agree. She strips down, lays back in my bed, and I get to work. Things go well. She gets hers a few times. And then just like that, she's up, throws her shorts on, and runs out of my room. I'm just sitting there stunned when hindsight kicks in, and I convinced myself that she was dirty and actually start washing my mouth out with undiluted rubbing alcohol. A few days later, I and I are up again and tell her the story of the mystery girl. It turns out she knows who it was. Apparently that night, Ivy and a bunch of friends, including Mystery Girl, were drinking together and talking about guys in physical relationships. Mystery Girl was telling stories about her own misadventures, and I was apparently presenting me in a very positive life. Because as Ivy told it, Mystery Girl just got up and ran off without saying anything to anyone, and they all wondered where she'd gone, which, it turns out, was to my room. So that's it. That first story just goes to show how being a good friend and all-around good guys has its perks. If you like these kind of threads, hit the like button and subscribe to my channel to be in the loop with all the other wild videos I post on the daily. Story 6. I used to be a bartender and a bit of a drinker, so there are a few. The worst was probably the time I had some fun with this lady I met about an hour before the end of my shift. She was a bit older, 47, and I was 21, but she was very good looking. She flirted with me a lot and bought me a drink when I finished my shift. I was young, so I thought she was just being nice and playful, until she put her hand on my lap and whispered in my ear, "I want to have fun with you." We then hurried back to my place. But I didn't want to wake my roommates, so instead of taking her to my room, we went downstairs and proceeded to knock boots on my couch. The worst part was when she told me her son was older than I am, and I peeked so hard. I'm just kidding. She told me that after we had finished. The actual worst part was that it turned out she was married. I'm not really a fan of cheating, so I now always check to see first. The physical relations part was pretty decent, but I did feel kind of used. Afterwards, story 7, I met a girl. Because I went outside at a party to have a smoke and found her bawling her eyes out because she broke up with her boyfriend. 10 minutes later, we were upstairs in an empty room, having a little bit too much like wild animals. I always feel like this is the worst thing I've done. The second would be the hottest 60-plus-y old woman I met while getting buzzed in a jacuzzi in a hotel area. We were staying there for my grandmother's 70th anniversary shindig, so my whole family was there. I was invited back to this woman's room after and learned a lot of new things when it comes to bedroom matters. But goddamn was she in good shape and looked great for her age. Story 8. One time I went to a girl's house to get some, but to get home, I had to take the Atlantic City Expressway to an exit that had a 75-cent toll. Exact change only. After we had F and mentioned that it would take an hour to avoid that toll since I ran out of chance. So she rooted through her purse until she found 2 quarters, 2 dimes, and a nickel. Apparently, I'm a really cheap date. Story 9. I had fun with a guy I met an hour prior in a small supply closet at a bar in NYC. The door didn't close all the way, and at one point, a busboy was walking up the stairs to go to the rooftop, and he caught us. We were frantically pulling our pants up, apologizing, and he just chuckled and told us to finish. We did not finish. Story 10. One time, I was playing GTA online as a female character, and some dude came up to me and asked if I wanted a good time. As any reasonable person would do, I said yes and got in his car. He made me crouch in front of him to give him a sloppy, and he would air thrust in my direction, all the while messaging me naughty things. As terrible as it sounds, he would protect me from other players, pull out a super nice brand new DLC cars for me to drive around in, and carry me through missions for easy money. I even would make him take me out to burger and taco places before he could have his way with me. 10 out of 10 would do it again. It helped me pay for my first nice car. By the way, I'm a dude. This is why I have been tempted to play as a girl in some games. They always seem to get all the good stuff. Story 11. A few years ago, I got a sloppy from 2 girls that look very much alike. and they would switch off, as much as I begged them to go at it simultaneously. I've always suspected, but I guess I'll never know. The other great part of this story, I just given them a ride back to their car in my pedicab. They get out and the first girl asks me how much. I'd already had a good night and we'd been flirting the whole time, so I told her, just put a smile on my face, hoping she'd flash me or something. She gives me $10 and keeps flirting. Maybe 7 to 8 minutes later, she starts giving me a sloppy. She does this, for a few seconds pulls back and says, "Hold up, give me my $10 back." I did. And shortly after her sister joined in. The way she asked for her money back always makes me laugh when I think about it. Story 12. Probably the time I had fun with my step-cousin in the chat at my actual cousin's wedding. Technically, I had met her earlier that day when we were stopped by my uncle's trailer to visit for a while, but we didn't talk. She was eyeing me up at the actual wedding, so we asked her if she wanted to dance. Later, and about 20 minutes later, we snuck off to the shed and did the no-pants dance. We went at it again later at the condo I was staying at, and made my brother go upstairs with my noise-canceling headphones before she got there and told him to listen to loud music for a while. She actually went on to date my other cousin for a while, her stepbrother. She was a classy chick. I don't really think there is any problem with the situation. Story 13. A girl it never met in person before texted me, "Wanna have fun?" At 2:30 a.m., right after I got home from a party. I took an Uber to her place. I discovered she looked nothing like her pictures at Fun. Anyway, because I was hammered and I took an Uber back. I was gone for a total of 47 minutes. The worst part was when she asked me if it was worth thinner as I was leaving. I thought she was joking, so I just laughed. She looked at the floor and said, "Oh, never mind, I didn't think so." Anyway, in the most dejected voice. I felt really bad about that. Story 14. I met a girl in Las Vegas at an EDM concert. While in snow for the first time, I don't normally experiment with illegal substances. She was dancing while staring at me and said she really liked my beard. We exited the dance floor, and she was telling me she was a Sunday school teacher. Followed by, "Don't worry, I still know how to have fun," and in short order. After that, she said she was going to have fun with me as soon as we left. We found my friend that I was sharing a room with and told him I was headed back, and he shouldn't come back anytime soon. Me and the lady made it to the taxi where she said she's not wearing any lingerie. I checked. She wasn't. And she liked it. Long story short, we get to the room and she tells me I can do anything I want to her. She stayed the night, and we went at it in the morning. And she left without stealing anything, which was a nice bonus. For whatever reason, we exchanged numbers, and she would send me dirty videos. Story 15. Driving for Uber, I picked up an unattractive girl who just stood up on a Tinder date. She mentioned the guy could have had his way with her easily. I volunteered and went to her place with her. She turned out to be the female version of the South Park WoW guy. She worked in it. The house looked like a hoarder lived there. Garbage is all around the place. Adult toys just lying out in the open in their bedroom. Afterward asked me if she could still tip or if that would be offensive. 5-star ride. Full disclosure, it went about exactly as you'd all imagine. Awkward and rushed, but I'm not ashamed. Big girls need love too. I know some might wonder how I can with someone who's unattractive. The only answer I have is that a good imagination can get you through some rough times. Story 16. Went to DC for a 2-day client roadshow. Set up 3 Tinder dates ahead of time over the 24 hours and slept with all of them, including 2 back-to-back. I'm a white, conservative, 45-year-old former frat boy, and the hotel valets and front desk staff, all black, were wide-eyed after seeing me welcome a lovely 40-year-old black woman for happy hour in the lobby at 5 Rosdacker, and then see me walk her back to her car at the valet at 7:30, drenched in sweat, only to see me back down at 8 or neatly showered to welcome a 27-year-old black beauty, and then again escorting her back to her car at 11 hours drenched in sweat again. Love DC. Ended up dating the 27-year-old for several months. Story 17. Rented the movie Michael with John Travolta from Blockbuster. I was on home for break from college, showing my age. It was a 3-day rental. I watched that movie 3 nights in a row with 3 different dates in my parents' basement, and I still have not actually seen the movie. Story 18. I came across an incredibly intoxicated Norwegian girl as the sun was coming up in Barcelona who couldn't string a sentence together. After finally getting an address from her, I literally carried her home. Her friend was worried sick and grateful that I had brought her home. Next thing I know, I was having sex with her friend, whilst the other one was passed out in the same room. Story 19. I was dating my boyfriend, now husband, and we were staying the night at his house. Before we were comfortable having sex, we did other things such as giving head. Well, one night we were both feeling frisky, and I went to give my husband head. At the time, I would let him in my mouth, and then I would just go to the bathroom to spit and wash my mouth. I hated the texture and could not swallow. On the way to the bathroom, his mom stopped me and tried to talk to me in the hallway while I had a mouthful of nut juice, and she said something that made me laugh a little. Was almost the worst moment of my life. Story 20. When I was 19, I hooked up with a 33-year-old woman that came into the bar I worked at to shoot pool. She was really good, but so was I because I worked in a pool hall. We ended up going back to her house and hot monkey f***ing all over the living room. She was newly divorced and hadn't been laid in a while. This was a weeknight, so she had to be at work the next morning. As she's hurriedly driving me back to the bar, we're talking, and she was shocked to find out I was only 19. I had a beard and people generally thought I was about 10 years older than I was. She drove off as soon as I got out of the car, and I didn't see her for about a month. She came in one night as I was getting off and wanted to talk. Apparently, she managed to reconcile me being 19 and giving her lots of orgasms. We regularly the rest of the summer until she got a work transfer across the country. I completely lost interest in girls my age after that summer. Story 21. In my 20s, I was in a bar in Tokyo and was invited to join a group. We moved onto a club and partied throughout the night. At a certain point, way after midnight, I realized that everyone had left and there was only me and wizened old lady who had been part of the group. She led me out of the club and along the street. I had no idea where we were going until we got to the door of a windowless ground floor building. On opening the door, I recognized the other members of group. They had quietly left the club to avoid a guy in the group, and this was the old lady's snack bar. I was so glad that the old lady was not taking me back home for something slutty. Lol. I had almost ran off when we reached the door. Story 22. 16-year-old. Went to a wedding. Up with a girl that another dude had been romancing all evening. She just walked over to me and asked if I wanted to go outside for a chat. We found a bus shelter just down the road from the venue and started kissing. Next thing, her hands are down my shorts giving me a hand job. About a minute into said hand job, 3 dudes come wandering into the bus shelter and spot us. They have a quick laugh. Then one of them says, "Don't worry, dude, we'll stand gourd," and went and stood in front of the entrance to the shelter so no one else could get in. She finished me off and we went back to the wedding. Was basically my sexual awakening. Later found out her nickname was Handy Mandy, not joking. Story 23. I once went on a date with a beautiful Italian expat who moved to the same city as me. The date went great. We ended up at her house. We had to be quiet so she wouldn't wake her roommate, but it was great sex nonetheless. She came when I licked her gorgeous pussy. She had a nice, neat strip above it. The second time we fucked and she fucked off. Then came the surprise of the evening. She said she was getting up early in the morning and wanted to go to bed. That she had already come twice and I could make it too. And that I couldn't sleep over. I walked home through the city at night, only to find at the bus stop that I missed the last tram. Standing next to me was a young student, a waitress, whose shift had just ended and who also hadn't gotten downtown. I offered to walk with her. On the way, we got along well enough, and I was still horribly from the first date of the evening, and I offered her to come to my place for a drink. I made the drinks, but we didn't even have time to drink them. We hit it off in the kitchen. It was so hot to know that 2 girls were gonna in one night. Unfortunately for the waitress, my stamina wasn't what I needed to last much longer. I came all over her little in about 5 minutes. But being a gentleman, I didn't let her leave without an orgasm. Story 24. Not me, but a co-worker from several years ago. I worked with this guy whose name was Bill. He was from Texas and was very much a country boy, so we all called him Wild Bill as a nickname. We all lived in Japan, and the town where we lived had a street of dirty bars right across from where we worked. One of the bars was a country-themed bar, so naturally Bill frequented the place. One night, Bill got belligerent drunk and ended up sitting at the bar with a girl in a skirt. They started making out for a while, and eventually he began finger-banging this girl on the bar stool in front of a room full of people. After that, everybody called him Wild Bill, fastest fingers in the yeast. Story 25. Thought I was going for a friendly meeting with a friend, maybe a bookstore or a coffee somewhere. No, last minute realizes it's a meet-up downtown at a bar somewhere, so we do. Shots incurred immediately and turned into some finger food and a couple of smokes outside. On the last smoke, it quickly turned into a makeout session which was wild and met evenly. From there, we dip in and out of a couple hole-in-the-wall bars and one of them turned into a quick bathroom session. Unbelievable. That turned into jumping behind some houses from a fence to a balcony, to getting busted doing that to a job on a public bench, and her riding me there until we noticed a main street was easily in view and it was busy in the middle of the evening, to f***ing in an alleyway where we both came. There's more, but that's the exciting details. Story 26. I was 19 and had lost my virginity to a married coworker just a few weeks before. At a friend's party, getting pretty drunk, walked into the unlocked bathroom door to see this girl I had been talking to sitting on toilet, panties around her ankles. She finished peeing and stood up full bush in view. Slowly pulled up her jeans, then watched me piss through vanity mirror reflection, dried her hands and walked over and locked door. We f***ed for what seemed like the longest time, ending up on the bathroom floor at one point with people knocking on door to use bathroom, and we just ignored them. Gave her a nice cream pie and went back to party. She was my first one-night stand, and I never saw her again. But she was a beauty. Story 27. Before I start, I want to say I didn't think something like this would ever happen to me. So, I was chatting with this girl and we decided to meet up for coffee, just to chat and see if we click. When we meet up, I got the expression that she wasn't really interested. Not sure why. Maybe it was her facial expression or body language. I actually wasn't that interested myself, but decided to see where it goes. After we got our drinks at Tim Hortons, we decided to go for a walk since it was kind of crowded inside and it was summertime. We walked for a bit, made small talk, and ended up at a park. We were sitting on bleachers when she said, "This is the awkward silence before the kiss," something to that effect. I was kinda taken back. I didn't find her attractive and she wasn't really my type, but since I hadn't had much lucky, I decided to go for it. We made out for a bit and walked around and made out some more. Then, when I thought it couldn't get any better, she said, "I'm okay with this being one-time thing or a fling." I wasn't the one for picking up hints, but that was very clear. I asked if we could go back to her place, since mine was not an option. She didn't want to since she lived with her sister and didn't want to bring a stranger. We talked for a bit, and I joking said, "We can get a hotly room." When I saw she was kinda taken back, I immediately said I was joking. She laughed it off and said, "We have to save something for the second date." We left the park and talked for a bit longer and ended up back at the parking lot. The Tim's was close. It was around 11 or so, and the parking lot was dead. So we decided to sit in my car. I knew she didn't want to have sex, but was open to other things, so I asked, "Can I f*** you?" To which she replied, "Sure, but I'm a s***er." We agreed. I'll stop if she was close. So with no hesitation, she pulled her pants down, and I went to work. When I slided my fingers in, she was already soaking wet. We talked about how she's wet all the time. I f***ed her for a little bit while playing with her breast and dirty taking. I did this for a couple of minutes. I finally stopped, since I didn't want her to f*** her, when I could see how flushed her face was and how much she was f***ing. When I pulled out my finger, they were so wet that I had to use tissues. I moved over to my armrest and pulled out some tissues to clean my hands. But, when I sat back down and heard what she said, that was something I didn't think would happen. As I was sitting back down, while wiping my hands, she say, "I guess I'll do you," to which my jaw dropped. I couldn't believe it. It was for a lot of reason. 1, she said she was religious. 2, she saw me peeing twice while on our walk. 3, she just met me, and I didn't think things like this happened. So of course I said yes. I pulled my pants down, and she started to lick the tip and immediately started to suck my d***. I was already hard from finger her. It was great. When she kept sucking on it, trying to deep throat, and as I tried to face while seeing if anyone was around, I did slap her ass a few times as well. I lasted for quite a while, probably because I was nervous. When I was about to finish and warned her, she didn't stop. She kept sucking, and I it in her mouth. She kept sucking and swallowed it all. When she came up, I had the biggest grin on my face. We talked for a bit and went home. We hooked up a few more times after that, one time and jobs few times, which was us meet up for coffee, going on a walk, then back to my car, where she would me. Story 28. Pret late to this, but when we were seniors in high school, we went to Mexico. We had a group of probably 20 people. The last day, they were all drinking and socializing with other groups of high schoolers. Hit it off with this one girl while my buddy hit it off with her best friend. Fast forward a couple of hours and we're at the club dancing, making out, etc., etc. Buddy of mine is doing the exact same thing with his girl. We end up going back to their room. I'm going at it with my girl while my buddy is with his. We go from the bedroom to the bathroom to the patio. I slow my roll and hear my friend tagging his girl on the other side of the patio. I peek my head over the top, and my buddy sees me. We give each other a thumbs up. Get back to my girl, threw the finger in the ass, was a first-timer. The four of us go down to the beach and end up skinny dipping and watch the sunrise. Actually watch the sunrise still the girl I was with in a lifeguard stand. Allie, if you're seeing this, you know who it is. That was one hell of a night, thank you. I hope you enjoyed the video, and if you made it this far, I'm sure you'll also enjoy other video. See you next video.